I started my career in a PR firm, and I watched another colleague have her first baby, and it did not go well.
Welcome back to Prosper, everyone. I'm your host, Andreas Widmer, joined as always by my colleague, Rebecca Teddy. Today, we welcomed to the show a new guest, but someone we ourselves have been pleased to work with for the past couple of years. Meet Regina Bethencourt, the CEO of Tenuto, a marketing company that provides research-based branding for higher education.
Yes, and Regina is also a working mom whose company itself is something of a response to the needs of working moms and the needs of many families to find a good work-life balance. And so we're eager to talk to you about that, hear your story, and hear about that, Regina Bethencourt. Welcome to Prosper.
Thank you. Thanks, Rebecca and Andreas, for inviting me. I'm so excited to have this conversation today.
I'm glad to have you on. Just to get us started, maybe talk a little bit about Tenuto and what is its mission? What do you all do?
Sure. So Tenuto is interesting because we have both an external and an internal mission. And we were really started for our internal mission, which is to change the way the world works. It's a big mission, but something that is near and dear to my heart as I started my career and really found that it was just not compatible with the life I wanted to have also as a wife and a mother. I have 4 children, 5 on the way. And that is also something that's very important to me as much as my career is. And I realized many other women were in this situation. So Tenuto was started as a solution to the lack of options for moms and parents, really, but moms in particular on the market. And then our external mission, what we actually do in terms of our services, is help mission-based organizations take their really amazing missions and take them to market and really get the amplification they're looking for. A lot of times we find that there's many groups that in higher education, but also in the nonprofit space, they have really beautiful things they're trying to do, ways they're trying to change the world, but they lack the resources or just sort of the technical know-how to get this in front of the people that can really make it run and make it move. So that's where we come in.
That's fantastic. I think you buried the lead there because I don't think I knew when we met a couple of weeks ago. I think we did not know that number 5 was on
really?
the way. So
I don't know. I guess maybe I didn't mention it the last time. I don't know. Maybe we weren't telling people then. I can't remember when that was. But
so that's fabulous.
But yes, we're very excited. I'm due in March. When we found out it's a little
congratulations.
Girl, so.
That's wonderful, Regina.
Thank you.
Well, so let's talk about that. Tell us a little bit about more. Let's drill down on this idea of I'm going to make a business that changes the way people work and that allows moms in particular to find meaningful work.
Sure.
How did that come about for you?
So it really was, I started my career in a PR firm, a very kind of typically organized PR firm. And I watched another colleague in this firm. I was young, not married, just out of college. And I watched another colleague in this firm, older than me, with a pretty established career already, have her first baby as a employee at this company. And it did not go well. Nothing illegal happened. And this is what I saw in that experience is there are legal protections, right, for women who become mothers and their employees, and they're trying to manage these things. But there's a lot of things that you can do to make life harder and make a woman regret her decision that still falls in the bounds of legal, what you can do legally. And I just saw her kind of lose the respect of her colleagues. When she came back from maternity leave, there was a chip on everybody's shoulder about the work that they had to shoulder while she was gone. She was moved off of more important projects and put on less important projects to accommodate for time away and things like that. And I just saw this and I thought, I can't get married and have kids and be in this environment. So that's what prompted me to leave. And I went on my own for a while and freelanced, and then realized there's just a big market. There's so many talented women in this space that are sitting on the sidelines. They would love to do some kind of work. And they have the skills, they have the talents. They just don't want to do work that jeopardizes their family life.
Regina, this is Fred Sauté would call that entrepreneurial alertness, where you find a supply of highly trained, highly effective people who can create value for others, but you're seeing an obstacle in the marketplace. I've seen it myself, that people, once you have children, and if you're the primary caregiver, which is often the woman, you are being considered less valuable in the business side because you're not, quote, reliable, because you might have to leave. And of course, when you give birth and everything, you get the maternity leave. And then that's considered not reliable. And for that, they will, in a sense, it's not legally discriminating, but they're, in a sense, discriminating against you because they're not going to put you in the same kind of positions. I've just seen this happen in Switzerland with one of my nieces. And what this behavior brings with it, on the one hand, you can look at it as a problem and saying, woe is me. On the other hand, is how you reacted with entrepreneurial alertness and say, hey, this is a market niche. We're actually having people that I have access to, people who are way more qualified than other people on the market, except they have that one need. And that's, I presume, that your employees are all in that situation, or most of them.
Yes. Yeah, we're up to 9. We have a team of 9 now. We've grown a lot over the last 3 years. COVID really gave us a big boost because at first we were weird, a company that's only virtual and kind of doing flex stuff, and now we're normal. But yeah, so we're up to 9, and all so far are moms who, they want that flex schedule more than anything, and that's what matters.
And it's increasingly not just moms who want this, but dads want this as well.
Yes.
And the whole concept.
Yes, at the moment we're moms only, but we're certainly open, to dads. And as there's been a big push actually to move back to pre-COVID, kind of let's get back to the 40-hour standard thing. And as that happens, we're seeing kind of a movement of men and women out of the traditional office spaces and opting for more non-traditional work.
Yeah.
Regina, at a practical level, how do you schedule projects? Because there's a tiny little seed of truth in the in the fear that, oh, what if I have a huge project and something's a presentation's due for a client and the baby gets sick that day, right? And in a way, it's unfair because anybody can get sick, not just a baby. But there is a little, there's a little bit of reality to. There's a certain aspect of life with small children at home that's a little bit unpredictable. And so how does Tenuto just manage that?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been the biggest challenge in terms of figuring out how we structure ourselves internally, and then how we bring that to clients, and then for clients not to feel that there's some kind of reliability gap, like you were talking about, with the actual product that's delivered. One of the ways, and really the most powerful way, I think, is in building that culture. So like I said, with the other PR firm, there's a culture of a woman goes out on maternity leave and she gets a benefit that I don't get. So there's an anger there, and as if she was just taking time off, free PTO or something like that. Whereas if you have a culture and you work on building that culture, both as setting the example as leadership, and then really emphasizing that to your staff, where we cover for each other, right? So if someone's baby is sick and they cannot do this presentation, they always have a backup person that's there and ready to cover in those situations. So we build in this system of backups that, cover for those emergencies when, things happen. And then the other side of the coin is being more flexible about kids maybe being around when you're doing work. Our clients are used to a toddler popping in on a Zoom call. and saying hello, things like that. Obviously, there's moments when that really couldn't happen, but those moments are really much fewer than you think. And if people just have this openness, I mean, they do with pets, right? If if a cat walks across your keyboard, nobody
this is
complains. They say, "Oh, what a cute cat."
Is that crazy. Something that COVID shutdowns actually made better?
I think so. I think there's all of a sudden all these parents who sort of pretended that kids weren't a part of their work life had to show they do have a life outside work, and it's busy and it's chaotic, and that's part of life.
Regina, did you ever see my favorite viral video is from this guy who is this journalist in Korea talking about North Korea or something like that. And then behind him, he's like on this very formal show. Behind him, the door opens and the kid comes in, and then a smaller kid comes in, and the third. And I think one kid is even in one of these rolly thingies. And the wife is like doing ninja stuff in the background, getting the kids back.
Yeah, she's trying to crawl under the camera, but she doesn't make it.
We have to do a link to this. And I'm telling you, and the truth is, the reaction to that video is actually the truth. That everybody understands this is a part of life, and everybody thinks this is way more interesting than having him with his stoic face sitting there, and his quality and his performance is not in one iota impacted by the fact that he has two kids in the background. I think it's in the serious way, a perfect example of somebody who's just as competent as anybody else and has two kids that they're taking care of that, okay, they came in at the wrong time, but not a big deal.
And it lends a human touch. These are real people who you're working with, and real, it automatically creates that human connection. What we have more than anything, just because nursing babies are very hard to separate from mom, right? So we have lots of nursing babies that pop in on calls, and our clients love that. They love when there's a little baby there and someone says, "Let me pop off my camera. I'm, the baby's hungry," or something. And, we keep on with the conversation, or, let the baby kind of, I don't know, have some FaceTime on the camera. I mean, our clients just find that. I've seen clients that they're down, they're frustrated. They're, how are we going to solve this problem? And then a baby comes on the screen and it's like, you know what? This is, we can figure this out, it's not.
Puts things into perspective.
The healing power of children is something people haven't tapped into yet.
Yeah.
You have that's your special sauce.
Exactly.
But it's also I think in society, we need to become more wholesome, more aware of all of life. And to some of our listeners who just start out with the career, I think it's important to look at that. So you who are in the middle of having a family, you have 4 kids. Rebecca and I kind of had our families. The kids are now in their 20s, and we're sort of on the tail end. And so this creates a very good mix of experience and but also pattern recognition. And I just want to add to this discussion, which I just thought of, but is a very deep recognition I have in my life. We are an adoptive family, right? And one of the things that happened in our case is you don't know how important it is for a child to actually see the parent. We think that this is just a genetic thing, but there's actually a physical part to this. I was literally traveling to the point, I was on the road so much that our son, we adopted him, he was 6 months old, did not know me. It was like, it reacted negatively when I came because I was such a seldom seen guest, right? Wow. And it actually caused me to change my position, like to change and say, I can't run a company like this anymore because I have to choose between I'm a parent or I'm running an international company where I'm on the road 80% of the time. And I think we should earlier on think of what to do when. And I would shift it today a little bit in that if I would have known how, I just want to say to the younger people, don't think about the having children as sort of the option in the future and in a way to try to delay it. think of it the other way. Just with my almost 60 years, I just want to give you this advice. Think of what would be if you couldn't have any kids, and then make your decisions based on that. And when you make the decision based on that, you're actually going to say, well, let me have them as soon as possible. And actually also, I don't know with your experience, Rebecca, but have them as long as you still have the bandwidth to do all this and the energy. And life is long afterwards. There's a lot of other things you can do. But this flexibility in the beginning and starting in a career and in jobs where you are taken as a full person, integral, is a critical part of, I would think, of a career choice if I would be in my 20s today.
Yeah. And as Regina is, I agree with you, Andreas. I'm not a good test case because Dennis and I suffered from some years of infertility. So we intended to have honeymoon babies and did not. But I do think you should keep, I agree with you that it makes more sense to build your family the way you want it and to figure out the career around it rather than the other way around. And I also see, as Regina is saying, that there's never been a better time to be able to do that, to call the shots in the way that you want them. I think there was a time, certainly in my parents' generation where, if you weren't going to work 9 to 5 and maybe some extra hours, that was the end of that. Like, well, okay, then we can't do anything for you. But there's so much opportunity now.
Yeah. And I would love to touch on that point, because I think what we're seeing now with many women among my generation is that motherhood is being put off until the last possible second. And you see these women that they say, okay, I've got to pour all this time and energy into my career. And then I panic when I'm hit 35, 36, 37. And I think, oh no, the time's running out and I'll have a baby or two sort of as a, afterthought. And then, sort of then you hit this career wall later in life, and it limits, the number of children you can have. It puts those kids into a time box. And then, yes, you're having those kids and having them be babies at a time when really it should be the other way around, right? When those years you should be pouring into,
I'm not sure that it's even ever been true. I mean, one thing is what people think of as the norm, but I think of people like, Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, or Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman on the Supreme Court. Both of those women married and had children first before they pursued their careers and got to, my point is I'm not pointing to them as necessary exemplars for people of faith. I'm pointing to them as people who, like, from very early on, did what they needed to do, and it didn't prevent them from rising to the top of their career field when they chose to do so. So I think some of it is just having the courage of your convictions and not worrying too much what other people say.
I completely agree with that. And there's something beautiful. And what I've noticed is having your children watch you build a career and have them be involved in that process. And they know, my kids know what I do. They ask me all the time, are you building any websites right now, Mom? They want to know about it, and they want to know, they tell other people, this is what my mom does. And, I can watch her do it. I can see her computer. I can watch her do it. And I ask her questions and she tells me this, it harkens back to a time that, I just find to be, a time where men and women, I think as husbands and wives, worked a little more closely in terms of building the economic foundation as well as the domestic foundation of the family. I was a history major by trade. And so I love, the study of work. And if you go back to, say, before the Industrial Revolution, you really did see these families. They were all working together in building the family business. If you have sort of a shoe cobbler, right? Maybe the husband's in the back making the shoes. The wife is managing the accounting and trying to get the new business and managing the invoices and payments. And the kids are there learning the trade, helping the mom, helping the dad. And they're part of that system. And I think we can get back to something like that, especially with the technologies that we have, that we don't have to be so separated in terms of physical presence. that's really the dream here that I think is something that people don't see. They really see these things need to be separated: the family, the work life, a chasm in between, and it really doesn't need to be that way.
This is really great stuff, Regina. We want to talk more about this, but first, let's take a quick break to acknowledge a sponsor.
If you are a business executive, HR executive, entrepreneur, or business rising star, the Busch School of Business invites you to join us Thursday morning, February 27th at 11 a.m. for the next in our Human Resource Speaker Series. We'll be welcoming Catholic Leadership Institute CEO Dan Cellucci to talk about scaling culture in a growing organization. Dan Cellucci is a sought-after consultant for the church, having led important diocesan projects in Boston, Miami, and Pittsburgh, in addition to leading the Catholic Leadership Institute, an apostolate providing leadership training and consulting to more than 300 bishops, 6,000 priests, and over 39,000 deacons, religious, and lay leaders in more than 120 dioceses. Cellucci will share the top 10 lessons he learned as a leader who grew in and with an expanding apostolic business. Anyone managing or leading a business needs to know how to create a friendly and wholesome culture where everyone can do their best work, especially as your company grows to include more people. We all want to employ human resources best practices that respect the dignity and flourishing of the human person. So we invite you to join us for actionable advice on February 27th at 11 a.m., either live on our beautiful campus in Washington, D.C., or through our convenient virtual option. To register or to find out more about the Busch School of Business HR program built around a comprehensive vision of the human person, contact Professor Tracy Phillips at phillipstr@cua.edu. That's Phillips, PHILLIPS@cua.edu, or find the registration link in the show notes for today's episode. That's February 27th at 11 a.m., live or virtual options. You won't want to miss Dan Cellucci's practical and inspiring presentation and our fully Catholic approach to HR.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Regina Bethencourt, CEO of Tenuto, about prioritizing young families while working in agencies and how companies can find solutions that work for both employees and customers.
Regina, something that you said before the break, I'm just really fascinated by and impressed by, and this model, that you just saw, that I don't like the way this woman ahead of me was treated, and I'm not doing that for myself. And so I'm going to actually create some opportunities for other women. And it's interesting to me, I'm actually not online enough to understand how deep what the question I'm about to ask goes. But I see that there's this phenomenon of something called the trad wife. I don't know if you're familiar with this. And people who are younger than I am, are having these debates. And the debates are, to me, they seem strange because, as I said before the break, I feel like there's much more flexibility and much more ability for anybody to kind of call their own shots, as long as they don't worry too much what other people think. But I see this trad wife trend where people are talking about, how do you answer a woman who has lots of kids and is doing lots of beautiful homemaking work, but thinks that a woman has no business seeking work outside the home? And then, and at the other end of the spectrum, you people who say, maybe in contradistinction to the trad wife phenomenon, an increasing number of women, or at least if the headlines are to be believed, who are childless by choice precisely because they want to pursue a career. So maybe just push even harder on the button you were talking about before, about maybe those two things don't have to be, maybe we don't have to go to either extreme.
Yeah. And this is something that has been a challenge for women for many decades, right? But the amount of people that want to tell women, you have to make a major choice, really a line in the sand choice. I think about my mom's generation, you didn't have the technologies that allow you to work from home or things like that. So like you were saying, is you go to an office, you wear your suit and your heels and you go to an office, or you are home with the kids. And this movement is pushing on that a bit and continuing that conversation and not talking about now there is an option that can bridge the gap between these two pieces because both of these sides of the coin have some truth. There's this trad wife movement that says there's something deeply beautiful about being there with your children, like Andreas was saying before, about being the one who puts the Band-Aid on the knee, about being the one who gives the kisses and wakes a sleepy baby up from their nap and is the one nursing the baby, right? In the early years. And you see that and you're saying, okay, these women are grasping onto something so good. And it's true. There's a lot of truth in that especially in the, this is a little politically incorrect, but the women especially is so physically unreplaceable in those first 5 years, right? Because they're the ones having the babies and then through babyhood, toddlerhood, it's just such a heavy sort of lift for mothers physically. And then on the other side of that coin, there's, women have access to great levels of higher education and they have great brains and they are able to do these amazing things in the professional sphere that the idea that they should not just because they have this amazing capacity to be mothers is also ridiculous. So both sides are hitting on some really deep truths here. And it's easy to get, kind of all in on one or the other. And what I would encourage these women who are having these debates online is to really say, oh, can we blend these two, right? Like I run a company of 9 people and I right now I have a birthday cake in the oven because my little guy is turning 2 today. I mean, I'm there for those moments, but I also can have these pursuits and passions as long as I don't fall into the trap of either one. That makes sense.
So, Regina, yesterday, Rebecca and I taught our 118 class, and for those listeners who have been in my class and in our class, they would know I teach about the 8 thoughts, eight categories of thoughts. It goes back to Cassian, and it's the origin of the way of the middle. The rule of Benedict, the way of the middle, and very wisely, Cassian says that the way of the middle is usually the way to go, rather than the extreme. So try to be a 6 o'clock person, not a 5 to 12 or 5 after 12. And here, look, I'm a guy, and I don't obviously have a natural mother instinct, but I have a father instinct. But I pride myself. I think I have enough empathy to see and to perceive. Look, I've been in a career all my life, and I've seen this happen, and then eventually see it as myself. I did end up leaving my job, and we don't have to go into detail. For some reason or other, I ended up being alone with a 8 months old. Alone at home for a month almost. Now, I used to run companies with hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, with hundreds of employees and everything. I'm telling you something. I have never, I was in the military and I was a bodyguard and everything. Never in my life did I do something as stressful and as freaking me out as taking care of an 8-month-old. I stopped to eat, sleep, wash, anything. It makes a total freak out situation. That's the one side. So on the one hand, we need maternity leave, paternity leave, and actually both very important. We need to pay attention to single moms. We need to help people with such small children. This is the most stressful job there is in the world. Yes, it's also the most beautiful and everything, but let's first say it's the most stressful. The second thing I have to say on this, and you can tell that I have a couple of opinions on this. The second thing is, you have to understand who you're dealing with. To look back, and this is sort of my criticism of really backward-looking people who want to go back to the Shire or Chesterton, kind of thing. And I'm saying, we're not from the Shire, okay? Like the 2 women I'm talking with, Rebecca and Regina, they have top world-class education, have been trained in mental acuity and work in a way that if you from one day to the other go and say, okay, we're not going to do this, just say goo goo gaga for a while right now. This is a form of, not only is it a form of wasting resources and talent, but it's also a form of driving somebody into a corner where you're limiting their ability. And so I'm not saying that if somebody wants to go take care of a child 100%, hey, go for it. Good luck with you. But on the average, for a woman to stay involved at some level, this is what we're trying to do here at the Sioka Center, to keep you involved at some level, because you're a valuable resource to us. Your intelligence, your acuity, your experience, you have corporate history in your mind. So I'm not going to let you go. If you want to go down to 10%, that's fine with me. But don't leave. And part of me, the wisdom part, says, I'm going to also do this because I want you to have the balance, as little as it is at times. I want you to have the balance of taking care of kids, but also do what you've been, in a sense, trained for all your life, which is the mental work that you're doing with us.
Yeah, I love that, because it does also give women that ability to fluctuate. Because when people think about motherhood, sometimes they don't realize how small the amount of time that a mother actually spends in those critical years is. I mean, you might feel that. For me, it feels like forever, right? Because I'm in the middle of it. But you might feel that, Rebecca, after being, and you, Andreas, after sort of, oh, my babies aren't little anymore, And it really is 10 years, maybe 15 if you have a big family, of your life that you're in this critical mode. And if you can keep a foot in the door, and you can keep your growth going and keep your development, you can, after those 10 years, and your youngest one is 7, 8, 9 years old. One of my employees, actually, she's in that situation, and she jumped back into the workforce because she said, okay, my youngest is 7. I've got 30 hours a week I'd love to dedicate to something. And she's there, and some of us are on the other end of the spectrum. And, it's beautiful just to be able to keep that going without saying, no, you have to go away, shut yourself away, and then come back.
In a way, what you're pointing to is Andreas and I always come back to like one or two or three themes. And one of the themes is just personal vocation, right? And I happen to be finally catching up to Jonathan Haidt's book about the anxious generation.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the points that he makes there, or one of the terms that he uses there that I think is helpful, is he talks about strategies for family management, as opposed to what I think some of us fall into sometimes in church circles. We'll talk about, imitating a saint.
Yes.
Right. And imitation, that's good in as far as it goes. What the church means by imitation of Jesus or imitation of a particular virtue is very wholesome. But it doesn't mean literally living exactly the same lifestyle, like eating the same meals, setting the table the same way. What the saints offer us is, in a way, strategies. And you try things until you find the one that's going to work, that makes sense to you, and that it's going to actually work for your family. Mm-hmm. And there's, in an essay I wrote once long ago, not to quote my own, but there's another Regine Pernot, wrote this book called "Women in the Days of the Cathedrals," about women in medieval times.
Oh, I would love.
And she said something there that really pierced my heart, which she said, imitation is a good copybook exercise, but it has never present or created something new and original, and not a masterpiece. And why don't the women of our time, create new solutions for our time, just as the women of the medieval period created the solutions that were correct for their time? Mm-hmm. And I'm always haunted by that, and therefore I'm a little bit allergic to the, one size fits all formulaic response to how a woman, or what you said is correct. It's not just a woman, right? Husbands and wives, couples raising children, how they build their lives together, which does not in any way negate throwing out. It doesn't cause us to throw out wisdom of the ages and the biological reality, as you say, right, that women have to be. It's still the woman that's going to bear the child, right, no matter what, right? And if you want to nurse, it's the woman who's going to nurse the child, and that implies certain things. But the formulaic response where every woman has to follow one particular model, I'm not sure if that's actually in the end Christian.
I agree with that, but it is easy. So I think that's why it's tempting, right? Because it is, it's so hard to be a mother, a young mother, and a woman in 2024 and try to know what's the right thing to do. And, we have social media everywhere telling us, you should be this way, you should be that way. And so just to clamp on to something that someone else has done, an influencer, the girl who made the trad wife thing famous is a super famous influencer, Ballerina Farm. But you grab onto that and you say, that's who I am. And that way I won't mess up because she has a great life and she's doing that. And, and that is kind of that sort of simple fix but in the reality, we're all individuals. We have individual families. I mean, you look at Andreas's adoptive family and then a biological family, and the needs are just different. And the way that the family is structured is different. And they're both beautiful. And
yeah. And you're married to your husband,
right,
not to my husband.
Right.
And so that's going to be...
My husband cooks 3 nights a week, and he's great at it. A lot of people don't have that. So, yeah, it's very, that's very crucial. And that's what I tell young women. I'm very privileged to be in a position now where young women come and ask for this kind of thing as they're having their first baby, and they ask me for advice on what to do. And that's really what I tell them. Like, don't do what I do. Don't do what the lady down the street does. You really have to figure out what is it that makes sense for me, what both fulfills me as with my gifts and talents, and also fulfills what I feel called to do as a mother. I mean, this is where a woman has to do that discernment.
What I love about what you're doing, Regina, is as the CEO of that company, you did have this entrepreneurial alertness to go after it. I wonder how you can use this position of yours, your human resources, literally, as a competitive advantage, because like you're working in the educational market, but it will extend into the consumer market and things, because you actually have people working on the marketing and on the websites of institutions that have you all as its clients. Like they're trying to appeal to you, right? And so have you seen that feed off each other, and that you actually have a competitive advantage through that?
We do, actually. It's happened a few times where, we'll get into a client and then we'll realize, well, we can actually give you like lifetime market research here if you're interested. And I think that's great. But just going back to the human element, I think that's where we've had our competitive advantage, is that, human beings doing great work like to work with other human beings doing great work, and they see that in our team, and they say, this is a team I want to see and support. So,
Regina, how do you find your talent? How do you hire differently? As you've expanded to 9?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how that happened and what you learned.
Sure. And I've learned a lot because there are different kinds of people looking for this kind of flexible work. And we're looking for a very specific kind, and not all people who fit that bill work well with Tenuto, because there are many people looking for flexible work who would really rather not be working. But the way our economy is right now, it's very difficult to run a household on a single income. So they're sort of working a bit against their will, right? I've got to find something that gives me an extra, I don't know, $1,000 a month because we just need it to cover the expenses. And there are jobs out there for those kind of people looking. But we've really found that at Tenuto, it's not a great fit unless this is somebody who feels deeply called to a professional pursuit, right? They have this skill that I've got to use it, right? And that's what we look for in those interviews, is somebody who says, I just feel like I want to use this, but family is really important to me. So I'm hoping I can find a way to blend these two. And that's what we look for. But it certainly has been a learning curve of finding different people and, in this field too, and in the type of people we're attracting, the needs change and people decide I need to step down in hours or I need to step up in hours. So, even among the employees we have, we're things are moving and shifting, and it's been an interesting journey getting used to that.
And you're making
That's like the quintessential entrepreneur, because Andreas always tells me, usually when he's throwing a bomb at me, that to be entrepreneurial is to have a high tolerance for chaos.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't throw any bombs. I would have to, just for the record.
It's true. You don't. I'm teasing.
What I do is I encourage entrepreneurial alertness. So I present the team on a regular basis with new situations, new ideas. Oh, I think it's a cool way to go, and you're fulfilling some of these ideas of complementarity on our team. I mean, you're like the poster child, your company, for this. How you're complementing each other and also compensating each other. That somebody might go down a bit and somebody else goes up. Mm-hmm. That's the true sense of a team. How about? I'm very interested to see, like, on the one hand, your demand generation and your sales. So you're in a service business in a sense, like almost, although there's product involved, but you're in a service business. The downside and the danger, difficulty of a service business is you can either deliver or sell. It's one or the other things. And so aren't you, as the CEO, don't you end up just being the top salesperson and then the others do the delivery, or what?
Yes, basically that's the way it's gone. I see that evolving over time. I think eventually I'll have more support doing sales. For a while, it's a startup, right? So for a while I was right there, boots on the ground, doing a lot of the delivery myself. But then as we grow, I have, my team doing most of the delivery. But I even spot my team all the time. We have somebody who just actually had to go out for 3 days because not even a family or not even her own children related thing, but another family member is in the hospital, and she went to go help and be a support. And, I'm covering her clients for that time. And so, but then eventually, we hope to grow to a point where, we're really able to fill out those departments and sales and the different aspects of creative delivery.
And where, Regina, where did you get, do you have, maybe a role model is too much to say, but a forum that you're pursuing, where did you get your ideas and your vision for as you're building this? I know you're building this as you go, but you made a decision to become an entrepreneur. Did you have role models, and who taught you some of these things?
That's very interesting. I don't really have somebody. I'm a very sort of self-taught kind of person in this field, although I would say I read a lot. So there's a lot of people that, I love Pat Lencioni's books, and so I've leaned on him a lot. And then, just other things that I found at the, what's it called? The 5-Hour Work Week was a big inspiration for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's where I've really gleaned, some of these ideas, but in reality, I've always just had, I started my first business when I was 9. I've just always had this urge to run things.
What was that? Was it
a leaf raking business, actually.
Wow.
And we had a logo and a website, and this was in 1998, and I built my first website.
Wow.
And we had a logo, we had a website. We made about $250 that first fall, which is quite a windfall for a 9-year-old. So,
and what did you do with it?
We blew it on a big party with candy and movies, I think.
We're still doing that over here.
Yeah.
We just had a big party with a movie and candy and everything. Actually, even popcorn. Kate got us popcorn.
It's the best way to blow your money.
I'm telling you, one of the benefits of working at a university like this, we have an auditorium that is like cinema quality. And so we can actually have our 100 or 200 best friends and watch a movie here at the
Wow.
You'll
have to invite me to the next one.
We did that with all of our students. It was fun.
That's so fun.
We did it with our entrepreneurship students. Always with a film we can discuss. We can talk about entrepreneurial ideas.
I have to say, though, you asked me where I got, my ideas and support and that kind of thing. I would have just loved I went to Catholic, and, nothing like this yoga center and what you guys are doing existed when I was at Catholic, but just to have an entrepreneurship class, to be able to talk to other entrepreneurs. I mean, it just would have, it would have been such a game changer for me. So I just love what you're doing.
I think, and it'll be good to try this out on you. I think the biggest service we're giving to our students is okay, go forward with it.
Yes.
So that the fact that we're in a class and Rebecca and I are telling students, okay, today you become a business owner. You have no choice, just you have to do it. People wait on that fence for so long, some forever, that to say people are waiting for permission to move forward with starting a business because we're so used to this. And so maybe, can you relate to this? Because I think that's the biggest service we're doing for people, just pulling out their stuff and saying, go, right?
Yes, 100%. And that's something that my friends laugh at me, because I always tell them, my line is always like, jump off the cliff, because you'll never know if you're going to fly or not unless you jump off the cliff, So but everyone kind of wants let me get all the pieces in place before I take that step, which is never going to happen. So knowing from other people of saying, I started and I was paying myself $30 a month in the beginning.
But let me ask you, Regina. So who made you jump off the cliff?
Gosh, honestly, it was just demand. I kept getting requests. I did one website and then I kept getting requests, and I just thought,
you were tempted off the cliff.
Yes, I was tempted off the cliff. Yes, that would be accurate. But I did have this security net of, when I'm married and I have a husband with a stable job, it's a much bigger security net to jump off that cliff than somebody, who's not. So I do, I will say I can't take the full credit for that brave decision, because it is a little scarier when you don't have a backup plan. And I did have a backup plan. So, but I was the one who convinced Julie Larkin of Girl Talk. I don't know if you've had her on the podcast to jump off.
No, we haven't yet, but her we did mentor. but we were there when she was in the master's degree here, and we did mentor her in the early days.
Yeah. She's a very close friend of mine.
No, it is a different thing. I remember getting down to $5,000, and when you pay all the bills and everything, it's just like, I have $5,000 left in my name, and that's what you got here, and you got to feed people. So that's if there's no other source of revenue, but it also means that you don't dream. You basically, it's the reality that actually makes you do something, and in my experience, all of us have enough skills, talent, and opportunity to actually produce when we have to. This is one of those things that God has made us beautifully in this image of that He will take care of us. That you say, how is all of this working? And look, anybody listening to this, the three of us, looking back at our lives, whenever it mattered, there He was. It's like miraculously. Yeah. But God wants us to lean out the window, in a sense, not in an exuberant or reckless way, but in having faith that you do. Your company is
not reckless, but bold.
Yeah, I love that. Bold. Yeah.
Yeah, not reckless, but bold.
Good. Well, Regina, thank you so much. I think Kate, our wonderful producer off screen, is going, it's time. So we can talk to you for forever.
Yeah, I could talk for forever. I love these.
But before we go, how can people find you, and how can they find Tenuto?
Sure. So the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. So you'll find me at Regina Bethencourt there. And then our website is www.tenutoconsulting.com. And Tenuto is Tenuto. So you can.
We'll make sure to put it in a link in the show notes so people can find it.
Yeah. So, and I love answering questions, and especially mentoring young women in this kind of trying to go through this discernment process. So if that's you, feel free to reach out. I'd love to talk.
Wonderful. So that's it, our time for today. Thanks, as always, to Rebecca for joining me, and Regina, thank you. Friends, take care, and till next time, we hope you prosper.